season 1 finale of Stringing Along. I'm Jim Donio.
And I'm Ronnie King. And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody.
We
So,
are in it. Let's hope it's better than the last one.
yeah, it needs to be. So, sadly, this is our, as I said, this is the last show of our first season of Stringing Along. Never imagined we would wind up doing 10 shows when we started this 3 months ago. But we still have a lot more stories to tell and a lot more performances to remember and talk about and debate about. So we've decided we're not going to say goodbye tonight. We are just going to say that's not all, folks. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of our own memories, and we are going to tease you a little bit about what might be coming up in season 2 this coming fall. But before we get started, we do want to recognize once again our sponsor, MCS Residential Contractors. Its president, string band veteran Greg Meisinger. As we've talked about in the last handful of shows, MCS provides excellence in pre-construction, design development, all different types of construction and quality controlled services. They will work with you. They'll work with your budget. They will follow all the proper safety procedures. They will do such a professional job. They'll deliver a great final product. You can contact them at the number that's coming up now on your screen, which I hope you will do. The estimates are free. They are licensed and insured, and all staff are OSHA Hour 30 trained. So thanks so much, Greg. Thanks so much, MCS, for being our sponsor for the second half of our first season.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg. We really appreciate it. We really, really do. And how do I start this off? Let's see. Well, Jim and I are really excited. First of all, we want to get this out there. Jim and I are really, really excited to share this bit of information. We had set some goals, and our goals was just to bring you these shows and some information, some backstories, and what we like about themes and certain years, and of course some of the personalities, which we'll discuss later. But one of the goals we set was we wanted to make sure that our program was appealing to you. So for the first 9 programs that we did, we have had you, the viewers, amount to over 5,000 views. And for us, that's a big deal. It's a really big deal to us. Because like Sally Field, was it Sally Field in the Academy Awards? You like me, you really like me, or you like us, you really like us for some reason. Anyway, getting back to it, we always intended, this started out to be an idea to be a live show. First, it started out to be a podcast, just sitting at a microphone. Jim wasn't satisfied with that. Jim thinks bigger sometime. So the idea of going live was very appealing to both of us. And because of circumstances beyond our control, we couldn't do that. So Jim was more familiar with the Zoom process, more so than me. Obviously, I was not familiar with it at all. But this turned out to be a really great, this turned out to be a really great alternative for the time being. And we hope that we can come back at some other point and be live. One of the reasons for being live is that we thought that we would be a little bit more able to be very interactive with the audience. If we were on Facebook Live, you'd be able to post immediately and share in the conversation very quickly, and even make comments along the way. You could yell at us, you can praise us, you could do whatever you want, really. I mean, it would be fun, and it's going to be, trust me, in the future, it's going to be. In the meantime, we still want you to share your thoughts, your ideas, your memories, your family members in and around the mummers, you, if you were in and around the mummers, and pictures. We can't have enough pictures. We can't get enough video. So if you would, we went ahead and we created a email address, and you'll see that come up on the bottom of the screen, but the email is stringingalong2020 yahoo.com. So please don't hesitate to get on there and send us your messages, regardless of what they are. Even if it's critical criticism, we're using that as constructive criticism. We want to get better at this, and we want you to enjoy the program.
Yeah.
All that being said, moving on here. For our season finale, Jim and I were talking, well, what are we going to do? We did all these shows and some really great ideas. We even have a list of people who we have in the queue to do future shows that we did not get to. And I promise you, those of you who we've contacted, and you know who you are, we are going to be in contact with you, and you are going to be on this show, I hope, if it's available for you to come and talk with us. We're going to have a great time with it now that we really know the lay of this land. Anyway, Jim and I discussed, what are we going to do? I said, well, why don't we just talk about a couple of our favorite themes? We have talked about ourselves, and we've talked about ourselves a lot, but it's indicative of the show. I mean, we're doing the show, and we're using our frame of reference to get across other ideas and other things in the program. So we selected two themes each that we both participated in and also had things to do with other elements of that show. So with that being said, now, Jim, I know what you picked because we've been talking about it.
Yes. But now I'm going to tell everybody, else what I picked, and then we'll talk about why. So I picked two themes that are very memorable to me for different reasons. So first, you're going to see Hegeman's 1984 performance, which was called Dante's Dancing Inferno. So backstory, I put the theme together. I also choreographed. It was my first and my only year as presentation director, as well as a featured dancer in both, doing both of those roles in 1 year. The second one you're going to see, because you're going to see these back to back, is Hegeman's 1990 show, which was called A Command Performance. I also danced again in that show. And there's some really interesting behind the scenes stories that I will share about how each of these themes evolved. But first, let's take a look.
Hegeman, he's going to portray Satan, and the band members will be dressed in flames and devils. Look at their bright costumes.
And the musical director is John Pignotti Jr., director of presentation Jim Nano, president of the band John Pignotti Sr., and like Sherry said, Joe Walters, veteran mummer, makes his debut as captain of the Hegeman organization for 1984.
So first, the 1984 theme. So some, backstory. Ron loves backstory. So the 1984 theme was originally titled "Steppin' Out with Satan" when I submitted it to the band. But we had a few, I will say, very religious band members who thought it was glorifying the devil if we said "stepping out with Satan." What they wanted us to do was not do the theme, but change the title, which, okay, I was pressured to change it. So we tried to come up with another title, but we still were going to be like 56 or whatever we were, 64 devils. So I think we were still glorifying Satan in some way, but in a fantastical way, as other shows had done. So we compromised on Dante's Dancing Inferno. I was not a fan. Maybe if it would have been Donio's Dancing Inferno, I might have liked it. I might have liked it better. This was also, as you just saw, when you watched, this was the first time Hegeman and other bands were starting to do it as well, but this was the first time Hegeman used a large, a scenic backdrop and tried to come up with a special effect. And let me tell you, countless hours were spent trying to figure out how to, the creating of it and the painting of it, that wasn't hard. But we wanted something, we wanted one of our famous moments of impact. We wanted a moment of impact. It was coming at the end of the show. And we did have a little guy, son of a guy in the band, who was a really a little guy. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool if he could kind of burst through this scenic backdrop? So came up with how we thought we could do it. We put a sliding board behind the scenic backdrop. Many rehearsals, because this is a little kid and he had to get, past sort of the, this is his first parade in a suit. He's coming out through this, set piece, sliding down a sliding board, and then has to get right into, dancing to Disco Inferno and do the moves. So it did take a lot of preparation, a lot of rehearsals. It worked, which was really fun. He slid down and he came out, right at the perfect time out of this big devil's mouth. We were not glorifying the devil, of course, but it was this big devil's mouth. Another part of the backstory of this particular year was the makeup. We didn't do prosthetics for this, as bands started to do masks and prosthetics, I think, after this particular year. But we happened upon this makeup artist named Jim Lasasso, and we brought him in and we did a lot of testing to, how were we going to make up? We didn't want to do masks. We wanted to make up each band member. So, you'll see a photograph coming up now of me in the costume. So you can see what we did in terms of the shading, the glitter, giving it some dimension, what we did with the makeup. And, we were the first to use Jim. And then, he went on to be hired and used by a number of other groups, I think also in Fancy Brigades, I believe, as well. And so we started someone's career after that. Another little factoid. I really loved wearing this costume. I, helped to design it and create it. It went on to have a very long life. Typically, bands wear the costumes through the year, on jobs to raise money. And then, the costume goes in the attic or the closet or gets donated. This costume had a very long life for several decades. it was my most popular costume that people asked to borrow for Halloween. It was worn in many Halloweens. Uh, I wore it for Halloween a number of times. And then when I became a traveling guest speaker for the Mummers Museum, this was a great costume to bring along with me on these speaking engagements that I did to show the costume and let people really get up close and feel the fabric and the feather work for this costume. So this costume did not owe anybody a penny by the time I eventually donated it to the Mummers Museum. And finally, I had the honor of being the centerfold of this magazine, the National Geographic Traveler magazine, unbeknownst to me. So there was a photographer at City Hall, and he took, shots of, I guess, everything in the parade. And when he turned the photos into National Geographic Traveler, they were, planning this article about the Mummers Parade and why people should travel to Philly if they'd never seen it. I get this letter in the mail asking me for my permission to use this photograph of me. So here you'll see now the centerfold will come up on screen. So this was me in the Dante's Dancing Inferno theme as the drill master, presentation director in front of the band in action. I mean, the photographer really, captured me in full motion. And quite frankly, it's what, 37 years ago? And I had kind of forgotten about it. I had the magazine on the shelf. I've had it for the 37 years. And when I decided I was going to, select this theme to do for our show tonight, all of a sudden it like popped back into my head. I had forgotten about it. Oh, wow, that's, that was the theme that was in the magazine. So, I still have the magazine, don't have the costume anymore. But this was really special to me. Did you want to add or ask anything about 84 before I comment on 90?
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Go ahead.
Do you remember the little boy's name that was the Little Devil?
Yeah, his name was Joey. I don't remember his last name, but I know his name was Joe because father's name was Joe. So he was Little Joe. We had Big Joe and Little Joe, but I don't. Why? Do you know his last name?
No. You know what? Look, I know a lot of stuff. This is one of the things I don't know. I don't know why I don't know it, but
what's interesting to me is, okay, this is 37 years ago. So this this kid is now 40 plus years. He's 40 plus years old.
So, and they still call him Little Devil. That's what they call him now, Little Devil.
Well, but we're putting this out. We're putting this out to the audience. If you see this show or someone who knows Little Joe or whatever happened to Little Joe sees this show, please reach out to us. I would love to I'd love to see him.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be absolutely great. So let me ask you this, because I'm starting to laugh when you're talking about the costume itself had a long life after that, and I've got many costumes up in my attic, two of which we'll talk about later, two of which I've been offered a lot of money for. But so let me ask you this, because part of the long-lived life for one of those costumes was worn by the captain, Chicky Waters, and you know why? Because the costume wasn't.
I do know why. I thought we would seamlessly skip over the fact that when they measured him for the costume, and he was very clear that he wanted a skin tight jumpsuit. That's what he wanted. And I don't know that Carl and Mary Braun had ever made a skin tight full sequined jumpsuit for someone. But unfortunately, there's no delicate way to articulate this. So the crotch of the jumpsuit did not fit well. Let's just say that it was not fitted as well as it could have been fitted. And yes, Shiki Walters took a lot of ribbing,
Yeah.
a lot of
Now,
ribbing.
now, correct me on this because you would know better than I do. I always call them Chicky Waters. You're saying Shiki?
No, it was chic, like the Sheik of Araby, Shiki.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never knew that. I always thought it was Chicky Waters. But what a nice guy, right? And a great performer. He was
He
really
was.
happy to be in front of the band. I
Yeah.
mean, just a big booming smile.
Yeah.
And you know, we talked about the catalyst for that was the George M performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that led the way for him to become the next captain.
Yeah.
This theme was really a lot of fun. In my lifetime, I don't think that I've ever really seen a theme where the color palette was really dense here. You're just talking red, black, and gold. And that's it. Not a white plume to be found. No white shoes. No white gloves. Nothing. I mean, this is really well done. I know the band didn't finish probably as well as it should have with this because I just thought it was a novel theme. Now it's not like it wasn't done before. I mean, Garden State.
There had been
Devils and Angels back in the 60s, stuff like that. But the color is what struck me because it was so monolithic.
Like a wall. Yeah, it was a wall of color. Yeah. And so the other show, the 1990 show, the Command Performance. So there's an interesting backstory of this as well. And I think those who are viewers of the show who've been part of theme committees who understand that you don't always end up where you don't always end up where you start with themes. So this is a perfect example of that. So I submitted a theme for this year for 1990 called "It's About Time," and which was going to be the history of timepieces. Now, Uptown, in the only time Uptown's ever won, they did a theme back in the 50s called the Syncopated Clock. And there had been a few other themes that touched on it, but my vision was sort of the history of timepieces going from the sundial to various types of clocks to watches, as jewelry and that sort of thing. But part of it was going to feature, one segment was going to be a London segment, and it was going to feature Big Ben, because that's one of the most, if not the most famous clock in the world. So our captain at the time, John Pignotti, loved the Big Ben idea so much, he basically said, well, let's just make this a fully British theme. And that's how a Command Performance was born. Ironically, then, you only get the quickest, slightest glimpse of Big Ben at the very end. Here's why. So Johnny's massive headpiece, you could see as you watched it, I mean, he could literally barely walk with it. It was just so massive. It probably was one of the heaviest, maybe not necessarily one of the widest. It was very high because it was depicting the facade of St. Paul's Cathedral. Because we walked in with the Beatles song, Eleanor Rigby, which touches on the church where the wedding was. St. Paul's Cathedral is what we chose to use that for. So Big Ben was on the back. So he literally could not turn. He couldn't turn around. It was that heavy. He just, made his way in. And as you can see, he kind of, with difficulty, got off to the side, got to the back of the band, and they removed it so that he could change for being the King of England in the finale. But there's just this quickest shot of Big Ben when the dancers, which I was one of, when we dance at the end to Rock Around the Clock. Well, we were rocking, but we were definitely not around the clock because the clock was on the back of that massive headpiece, which was too heavy and too cumbersome to move it or do something else with it. And this was a time, a particular year where there was no scenery or sets or other ways. We probably should have thought about that and thought, is there another way we could, depict the rocking around the clock? But it was just back there and you sort of saw it. We were last that year. And there is, I think, a thing about marching last. A lot of bands like that position. And we certainly loved that position. There were 22 bands and we were last in line. The performance went off without a hitch. I have to say, I mean, some years you perform and you're leaving City Hall. And if you are a realistic person, as I am, you kind of know if it's going to be a top finish or not. And we really, really, really felt that this was going to be, no one likes to say, oh, we're going to win, but we really felt this is a top 5 show. This, James May costume, the captain's piece, the dancing, just the choreography, it all seemed to hold together. So, the 8th prize was a big disappointment. So, as I said, I chose these for 2 different reasons. And I did select this one. I chose this one because I really think this was, of all of my years, I think this was the biggest disappointment in terms of an overall show, a theme, a vision that it just seemed to have all the elements. And, judges are the judges. So, it didn't finish as I would have wanted, but it was still a lot of fun and definitely one of my favorites. So now it's your turn.
Well, I just want to comment on this this British theme, which was quite a bit different than the one we saw several years prior, 6 years prior, right? 1982.
8.
Well, that was 88, but I'm talking about comparing it to another British theme, which was Quakers, Pearlies, Plumes, and
That was
Poppin'.
That was 82. So that was 8 years prior.
Right, so 6 years prior? Yeah, 6 years prior.
No, 8 years. This was 1990. So 80 to 90 is 8 years.
Look at that. Jim's finally correcting me. And I like it. I mean, I got to be kept on the straight and narrow as well.
Just math. It's just math.
It's just math. And I was saying math. I was talking about math earlier to you about this.
Yes. And then after this one, if you're going to say, because we have shown, the other one we showed was the Berlin, which was a spoonful of London.
Berlin has done it. Uptown did in 96. They did a nice British theme, but this one here was really beautiful to look at. I mean, it was just stunning. Those huge back pieces with the acetate. I think that they might be the biggest band back pieces that we've ever seen too. I mean, those things were really huge. They went all the way to the ground, and for the body of the band, that was unusual. You always wanted their legs to be clear. And the pit band of the soldiers, the palace guards on horseback, that's what you relate them to. I know that this is one of the most expensive costumes to go up to date. I'm talking about even now. I mean, this is one of the most expensive. I'm talking about the body of the suit from front to back.
Yeah.
And this was Jim May at his finest. I mean, it was just, and we've had Jim on a previous show. This is some of his finest work. I mean, this thing was just absolutely beautiful. And when you talk about these organizations, we all know that some organizations go through peaks and valleys, and Hegeman was one of those organizations. And we would talk in other bands, and not just the bands that I was in, and I've been in a lot of them, but even the bigger bands say, always watch out for Hegeman. You never know what's going to come out of this band, and you never know how it's going to bite you when they finish in the top. And Jim, I agree with you that this, looking back at that particular parade, that this is a band that I would have thought would have been somewhere around the 4 to 6 area. I don't think it finished even that high.
No, it was eighth. It was eighth.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense to me that it would be that far back, especially because of the musicianship of that band too. Which, by the way, Jim sells himself short on one thing, and I talked to him about this over the week. You know, when I was looking at some of the things that Jim was talking about over the weeks, because we're still getting to learn about each other's career as well. You know, Jim doesn't know everywhere I've been. I know where he's been. He doesn't know, I don't know everything that he's done. He knows a lot of what I've been involved with. So it's a good relationship that way. Jim is not what I will call a schooled musician. He's a musician, but he's not a schooled musician. He learned to play, of all things, the glockenspiel by ear. So I went back for my own curiosity. I'm like, I want to listen to see if Jim is in the arena, because bells are a hard thing to play in string bands. In fact, they're almost non-existent in string bands anymore for different musical reasons. But they are a hard thing to play. Some people play them vertically. Some people, like Mary Shaw Geyser, played them horizontally on a harness.
And they're heavy.
But Jim, with no schooling, can't read music, picked all this music up for a number of years that he played bells. Jim, you're a good bell player, man. You did an excellent job with them. That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm proud of that. I really am. I don't know that a lot of people know.
They do now.
I think people, yeah, now they do. People kind of know me from the TV coverage, and then then following me after that when I went back in. But prior to that, starting out, as you said, just joined Hegeman, and I had played the xylophone and a couple of other instruments, but no matter how hard anyone tried, they could not teach me to read. I just couldn't read music. So yeah, I think I was a pretty good bell player. It's a difficult instrument because it stands out over everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And yes, so I am proud of that.
Back in that day too, we had a couple bell players, and some guys in other bands will like to hear this. There was a guy in South Philadelphia string band who played with not just two mallets, but like 4 or 6 mallets, 3 in each hand, and they would just be banging away. And if he hit a right note, it was only by accident.
Yeah.
I mean,
I sampled doing 4, but most of the time I played 2. So now we're going to move on. We're moving on to you now. So
okay,
do your big intro.
It's not that big. The intro, that is. Different subject. For those who know me best, it will be no surprise why I picked these 2 themes. So before I get into anything, please enjoy these performances. The first one by the 2011 Quaker City String Band and their performance of My Kind of Clown, followed by the 1996 Trilby String Band, A Piece of Harmony. So there you have it. These are my two favorite themes. And for the first one with Quaker City, there's no surprise to anyone. I used to have on the old MSN Mummer's Grapevine site, I used to have a screen name of Quest for First, because up until that point, I was like Jim. I had never won. But this year here, I was on a short hiatus from Quaker City. I came back to the band because that's at the time, that's where my heart was, and I wanted to be there. When I went back, I had to go back as a new member. It took a test all over again. And as a new member, you're not guaranteed a suit for that first coming year. So you're pretty much in reserve. And if you don't get a suit, you're performing with the marshals, setting up props, helping move props around. You're carrying water. You're working in support of the musical body of the band, the costume body of the band. Well, when I came back into the band, Dan Kosha, who was the newly elected drill master of Quaker City String Band, who actually happened to be a member of that Hegeman Command Performance Band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that Joey, Big Danny, Young Danny.
Yeah,
I mean that was a hell of a crew over there. So Danny was the drill master. He graciously and I really appreciate him appointing me as a member of his production committee. And their production committee works in two ways. There's a group of people that sit around a bar, chewing the fat, throwing out ideas. That's where I come in. That's where guys like Ryan McKelvey and some other guys come in. Then it moves on to the really talented guys when it comes to these ideas, is taking these drawn pictures of props and gimmicks and actually taking them to a garage and building them. And Quaker City's got some great guys who build their props. They're amazing with props. Then getting further along in this, Fram Rothwein, who is a Hall of Fame music director, who did administer me my test upon coming back, came to me later in the year when the suits were being handed out, and he asked me if I would like to be in costume. And of course I said, yes, what else would I say? So still to this day, Dan Kosha, he knows it. Franny knows it. I appreciate what they did for me coming back to Quaker City that year. And it gave me my first and only first prize. Some other things that went on that year with this particular theme was, I was proud to march behind Charlie Rhodes. Now, Charlie Rhodes, he's a Hall of Fame drill master. He's in the Hall of Fame for being the drill master for many years of Quaker City and several championships. And he was a really good captain. But above that, Charlie's always the gentleman. And marching with the band that year, because we did clown, so we had a lot of makeup on. I didn't. I was in a giant foam clown head, which you'll see pictures of this as I'm talking. One of the biggest thrills was not only did I win, marching with the band that day was a group of our wives and girlfriends in support of that theme to touch us up with makeup if we needed it. And one of those women happened to be my daughter, Gabrielle. And that was special because when we got the announcement at the Mummers Museum, I'm literally with Charlie at the front of the band, my brother next to me, and my daughter. And it was mayhem. I never experienced anything like that before. And it was great. And you will see me take it very personally in these pictures, where after 2nd Street is done, after we walked all the way down to Mount Carmel, and now we're walking back to the club, Danny Kosha had the trophy in his hands, and he handed it to me and said, here, you carry this back. Mm. So as I'm carrying it back to the club, I stop and I'm making out with this trophy, like I'm planting a big kiss on the side of the trophy. So you'll see those in pictures. So that's my my Quaker comments.
Well, and that's particularly also, you didn't touch on, but it's particularly significant for all the mum historians and mum freaks out there that Quaker finished first in 2011.
Yeah.
That broke the eight-peat of Freilinger. So Freilinger had won 8 consecutive years. Quaker City had finished in second place 8 consecutive years. And 2011 was, the halting of that streak. So that's another thing that's significant. So tell us about 1996. I know it's very special to you, and quite frankly, before you say your piece on it, your piece before you say your piece, it is one of my all-time favorites. It honestly is. It was long before I even knew you, and we became friends. The score, the singing. I grew up with that music and those songs. Everything was so spot on, and I kind of feel like that Trilby year is the equivalent of my command performance year, because that performance should have finished higher than, interestingly, they both finished 8th. So
Yeah.
it should have finished
Ironic.
higher.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You talked briefly about how the Hegeman clock idea went from being clocks and timepieces and morphs into a British theme. I had one other experience with that in South Philadelphia String Band. We started in 1984. We were working on 1985, and we were going to do a theme based on New York, like On the Town, kind of like what Angelo produced with Overbrook many years after. I think it was 1999 that they did it, that On the Town thing. And the Cotton Club movie and the show were very hot then. And so it morphed. It said, well, we're already in New York and we're going to wind up at the Cotton Club. Let's just do all Cotton Club. So briefly, it relates to your experiences with one theme morphing into another. With this hippie theme, with Piece of Harmony, it was already in my head for a number of years. There used to be a commercial back in the 1980s from like Columbia Records or something, or one of the things that were hawking music late at night, and there comes on the screen this guy sitting out of a side of a VW bus, and he's got all these records around him, and he's like, he called it freedom rock. That's what it was called. I mean, it was the peace movement, and they were very much into this. And so he says, is that freedom rock? Well, turn it up. And I've always enjoyed all genres of music. Now, my older brothers, Joey and Bobby more so, was very much into that music, the music of Jimi Hendrix and, the Mamas and the Papas. My brother Bobby was a hippie back then. He teased it. He had naturally curly hair, so he would tease his hair out real big, and he walked around with a knitted pocketbook of an American flag on him. I wish I had pictures of that alone. That would be a big charge. But so I was already immersed in that genre of music, and I enjoyed it. I turned it into the Woodland String Band in 1988. They wanted no parts of it. And it was because of certain elements of it could be touchy subject. We've talked about that, you and I, with other themes. So okay, I wasn't very pushy, so I said, okay, well, it's whatever it's going to be. So it stuck in my mind. So I'm trying to get this up to date really quick. Right to 1995, we are in a theme dispute over a theme. We turn in Tom Howley, who was the captain of Hegeman at one time, was the head of the theme submission committee at that time. So we submit a clown theme. He tells us, you can't do it, somebody's doing clowns. And we had a certain twist to our clown theme, and didn't matter, somebody's doing clowns. Okay, so our next theme was, we wanted to do a classical theme, a la Greater Kensington's Go for Baroque. It was called, by the way, Bach to the Future. So let that ferment in your head and think about where we were going to go with that. Anyway, Tom Halley calls us, says, you can't do that. Why? Well, somebody's doing it. I said, somebody's doing clowns and classical? Like, what are the chances? It was one band.
One band. It was Avalon, clowning
One
with
band.
classics.
And it was phenomenal. But I like this theme better. Sorry, guys. So we needed a theme. This theme had been stuck in my head. I start designing, knowing that it may not go anywhere, but we need something. I get it on paper. I go to the clubhouse. I go into the kitchen of the clubhouse and I called the creative guru of one of the creative gurus anyway, who was a member of Trilby at the time, but he's one of the creative forces of the South Jersey string band, which is Buddy Geyser. And I said, Bud, I need you to take a look at these pictures. I've got this theme and I want to know what you think. As soon as he looked at him, he said, that's it. That's what we're doing. I said, good, go tell my brother Joey, because he doesn't want to do this theme at all. But once Buddy got a hold of it, it snowballed. It snowballed into a full-on push by the entire organization to make this theme a success. You know, a lot of people pat me on the back for this. It wasn't just me. I'm just a guy who drew a couple pictures and had some ideas, but it really was the roles of the people who selected. So there were some songs that were already in the queue, which were a gimme for that theme, such as The Age of Aquarius, right? I get by with a little help from my friends at the beginning of the theme. But the walk-in song, it was originally slated to be Magical Mystery Tour, but it sounded like a Beatles theme to us. And we're like, no. And then Tom Garrity comes along and says, it's got to be California Dreamin'.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. Then we were supposed to do these boots were made for walking with the girls in the gilded cages and go-go boots. No, they said that's not going to play well. Let's do, and this song was submitted by Ricky Tierno, a longtime friend of mine. We're practically brothers, for crying out loud. He comes up with Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, Eric Clapton, you know? And so it was just one thing after the other where everybody was clicking on all cylinders. Like we talked with the girls, we know Mary Shaw Geyser designed the girls' costumes. She designed the scenery and painted it herself for the most part.
And Fern was involved with the choreography.
Choreographer, and as the captain of, and I never thought I would be the captain of a string band, let alone be captain of this theme. So let me just draw you an arrow back to Woodland String Band. Since I couldn't get it done there, when Woodland did L'Chaim, there was a reason why Bobby Cunningham was Joseph with the Technicolor Dreamcoat, because the hippie, the king of the hippies, if it's what you want to call it, was always going to be wearing a Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I got it in there a little bit. They didn't know it, but later on we did a full on. And my two biggest cheerleaders that year, my brother Joe, who did not think that this was a good idea, who did not think that this was smart, but if you see him on TV pull the band away from the judges when we walk out playing South Street, he couldn't be more proud of that organization, and especially of me. He was a huge cheerleader of me, and my biggest supporter, my wife Stacy. She has always been my backbone when I don't have any. You know, she's always there to support me, and this theme was so special to me that it trumps the first prize. Not that I didn't appreciate that. I still really do, because I got that off my shoulders. Yeah. But this one here,
there's that emotional.
You ever have a year with Hegeman where, and if you do, I want to know which theme it is, so don't run away from me. You ever have a theme where just everything is perfect?
Yes.
What is it? Which theme?
I felt The Girls of the World
Yeah.
which we
See,
talked
I
about
knew it.
previously.
I knew it because Girls of the World was really good. It was a complete theme from concept
Yeah.
to complete. It was a great theme, and that's this theme here: concept to completion
Yes.
with everybody's involvement. To me, it was a perfect theme, and I was very proud of it, and I
Well,
still am. And I'm
and
proud
you
of all
should
the.
be. And you should be. So we, we're drawing to a close. I mean, we decided to do this show for all of the reasons that you've heard tonight, because we love talking about string bands, and our memories and our recollections definitely inspire and cross over with, everyone who's been involved with this hobby. We started the show because we knew people were going to be feeling sad and lost. There wasn't going to be a 2021 Mummers Parade. It had been canceled. What were people going to look forward to on Sundays? We hoped the answer could be watching this show, joining us in, recalling, revering, reminiscing about past string band performances and people. The people was really important, that we incorporated others, not just the two of us. It was our pleasure to put these shows together. They would not have been anywhere near as interesting or entertaining without the 10 wonderful guests who gave of their time and their memories. And we want to just highlight them now, just as a thank you, and also to just remind you of these wonderful people that shared of themselves to make our show a better show. Frailinger's longtime captain, with the winningest captain, Bill Bowen Jr., show director extraordinaire, brother of Ron, Tom King, the father-son duo, representing so many other father-son duos in the Mummers, George and George Bowser, the history-making female captains that we were just talking about, but they deserve another shout out, Mary Shaw Geiser and Fern Dorfman, not to mention parade producer, Suzanne Hansberry. And finally, the three creative geniuses who came together to talk about where the ideas come from and how they come to life, James May, David Rigler, and Sean Grazer. Thanks to all of you. You really helped make this show, even better than what we may have expected that it could be. And also, we had two sponsors. Ron, can you acknowledge them, please?
Not only will I acknowledge them, I will talk about them all the time because they are true brothers in arms when it comes to being mummers. I'll tell you, they're just great people. So we want to thank Angelo Lutz from the Kitchen Consigliere Cafe over in Collingswood. I've known Angelo since 1984, and he has been a close friend ever since. I mean, we just I can't say enough about him. If you are in for an Italian meal, go see Angelo. You won't regret it. He's open and nice seating outside as well as inside. You'll enjoy yourself there. And most recently, Greg Meisinger. I can't say enough. I won't be able to say enough about Greg because there are aspects of him that just go above and beyond him just sponsoring us. He's not just a veteran mummer. He really is a benevolent soul and a great guy. And we want to thank him, MCS Residential Contractors. He is the president. And like I said, veteran mummer, Greg Meisinger. MCS provides excellence in pre-construction, design, development, construction, and quality control services. They will work within your budget and follow proper safety procedures while doing it in a professional manner to deliver final product. You can contact them at the number on your screen. Estimates are free. They're licensed and insured, and their staff is OSHA Hour 30 trained. It's very important that you know that, and some people don't know what that is. it's extremely important to have good contractors, safe contractors working at your home.
Mhm.
And these are the guys, believe me. I still need some things done to my house, and I will be calling Greg.
That's great. Well, it's a long time. It's going to go by quickly, but it is a long time until the next mum season will begin. So don't be surprised. We might pop up when you least expect it. We might not be able to wait that long, so we might surprise you with maybe 1 or 2 special episodes during the year. We know we still owe you the second and third installments of our Anatomy of a Theme series by having our conversations with the music and movement pros. But we do have a bunch of other ideas we just are going to tease you with. So Ron, just tease the first few and then I'll tease a few, just so people can start thinking about what we might be doing this coming fall.
Jim and I compete for punniest titles on these shows. Jim's winning, by the way. He comes up with some great titles. But ponder some of these titles. Compose yourself. We're going to talk about some famous composers and themes based on those composers. Second to None, which is mine, Jim. How did that get in there? Oh, that's my theme title. Hey, this one is about bands who won second prize, who could have easily been the champion that particular year. Mm-hmm. And here's one that Jim particularly likes. It's called 2 for 1. These are combination themes. You just heard me talk about it in the last segment about the Avalon String Band and the theme dispute. It was a combination theme. So we're going to show you some of them. And what are some of the others there, Jim? I don't have them all.
We have a few others. Whether or Not. Do you like that one? So that's going to be themes about the weather, which there have been a lot of. But we also wanted to kind of look back at some of the parades that were impacted by rain or snow or wind or cold, where they weren't postponed. And they definitely are memorable for a lot of us. Scared Stringy. So that's some of our favorite frightful shows. And then Show of Shows. Everybody remembers when we did the Show of Shows, but this is about themes that take their inspiration from the Broadway stage and Hollywood on Broad Street, as we take a look at bands that used the silver screen for their inspiration. There's so many others. This is just a handful. This is literally almost the next full 10-show season for fall 2021. But if you've got other ideas or if you have thoughts about some of these, definitely share them with us. So there's a famous phrase that says, you always want to leave them wanting more. So hopefully this first season has whet your appetite for what will come in season 2, starting in the fall. But for now, we want to both say thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your suggestions. Thank you for coming up to us, when you've seen us out and about and telling us that you really enjoy the show and you're glad that we decided to do it. And we do look forward to seeing you in September. Ron?
Hey, stringing along. That's what it's called. We're stringing you along. But we'll see you in September. Like the song. See you I'm not going to sing it. I haven't sang in a while, so I'm not going to do that to you. But listen, seriously, be safe, be smart, stay well.
Yes.
And God bless you all. See you in September.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, everybody.